Chapter 17. The sound of a phone ringing woke Katie up. She looked at the clock and saw it was after 8. The sound was coming from outside the bedroom. She wanted to get up, but Joe had his arm around her and held her back. "It's Sunday," he said. "It can't be that important. Just stay here for a while." Katie turned around to face Joe and kissed him. She said, "It's after 8 o'clock. Do you want to stay in bed all day?" "Yes. I guess we could, Joe, but then you would have to give up things like eating breakfast and going to the bathroom." "That's fine," Joe said. "I'd much rather lie here naked with you." "Nude," Katie corrected. "You got me on that one. I must be tired. You also got me thinking about going to the bathroom, and now I have to pee." When Joe got out of bed, Katie whistled and said, "Nice ass." Joe looked back and said, "I can't wait to hear what you have to say on the return trip." Joe made breakfast that morning again. As they were eating, Katie asked, "What do you think we should do about what we saw yesterday?" "What would you do if you were working alone?" Joe asked. "I guess I would start by learning as much as possible about McKay's wife." "Your friend Billy is not available today, so how good are you at research?" "About average. I can find stuff that's easy to find." "Then I think we should start with the easy stuff," Joe said. "After that, we can call Garcia and see what he knows." When breakfast was over and the table cleared, Katie got her laptop and Joe sat beside her as she worked. She first went to Facebook and looked up Matthew McKay. There were dozens of people with that name, so she carefully looked through them until she found the one she was looking for. His profile page showed a photo of him standing next to his wife. He looked relatively handsome with short, graying hair and a well-trimmed gray beard. His wife was also attractive, with her long blonde hair hanging over her shoulders. Only the wrinkles next to her eyes gave away her age. Matthew McKay was not an active user of Facebook. He had very few posts and nothing recent. Katie was, however, able to find his wife's account. Her name was Laura Davis McKay. She was also not an active user. She last posted a photo at Christmas time. It was a family photo of her husband, and 2 young men, each with a young woman standing next to them. One of the women was holding a baby. Judging by the positions in the photo, Katie guessed the young men were their sons, and the women were their sons' wives or girlfriends. Katie checked her About page. "Look at this," she said. "She works as a firearms safety instructor at Shooters Plus Range and Supply Center. It also says she served in the U.S. Army. Does it say what she did in the Army?" "No, nothing about that." "Whatever it was, we can assume she is good with a gun," Joe said. "It's very likely an Army-trained firearms instructor would be able to shoot 2 people in the heart with 1 bullet each." "It looks like we found our killer," Katie said. "The question is, how do we prove it?" "I don't know," Joe said. "All of our evidence is circumstantial. The video we have doesn't show the driver or the license plate number. It's too bad I didn't think to take pictures last night." "Why don't you bring your camera tonight?" "Tonight? You want to stake the place out tonight?" "Sure. Why not?" "You didn't think we would stay here and have sex all day and all night, did you?" Katie asked. "The thought did briefly cross my mind." "Joe, if you help me crack this story, I promise I will wear you out when this is over. You will be begging me for a rest." "You are quite the negotiator, Miss Katie." "Who could refuse an offer like that?" "Okay, so we're on the same page. I think we should call Garcia now." Katie picked up her phone, dialed Lieutenant Garcia's number, and put it on speaker. "Hello, Katie," he said. "Hello, Gabe. I'm here with Joe again. We have a question for you." "I called you earlier, but there was no answer," Gabe said. "I learned that only one similar Corvette is registered in the area. That car is being restored and is not drivable." "We're way ahead of you, Gabe," Joe said. "We followed the Corvette last night. McKay's wife was driving it. She went inside the Williams' apartment building for some unknown reason." "I thought you were going to enjoy your day and let me take care of this," Gabe said. "We did enjoy our day," Katie said, "but we saw the Corvette on the road after we picked up a pizza for dinner." "How do you know it was McKay's wife driving?" Gabe asked. "We know because we followed her," Katie said. "She parked at the McKay's apartment building and walked to the Williams' building. We saw her walk by. The woman we saw looked exactly like McKay's wife's Facebook profile photo. We also learned she is skilled with a gun. I've seen McKay's wife a few times, but I don't personally know her. I did hear that she was in the first Gulf War. What was her job there? Joe asked. I'm not exactly sure, but it had something to do with explosives. I was never in the Army, so I don't know what they call it, but from what I heard, it was like the bomb squad. Her team deactivated mines and IEDs and things like that. So she's an explosive expert. That's a scary thought, Joe said. What do we do now? Katie asked. Is there enough evidence to arrest her? Maybe you can scare her into talking. Are you asking me to arrest my captain's wife with the evidence we have? That might work for a common street thug, but I would surely lose my job if I dragged her into the police station. I see your point, Katie said. I just hate the idea of waiting for her to kill someone else before we can do something about it. I hate it too, Katie, but my hands are tied here. What about internal affairs? Joe asked. If McKay pulled you off the case to cover up his wife's crime, he is an accessory to murder. They could start their own investigation if you told them what you know. I'll think about it, Gabe said. This feels like something that could blow up in my face. Okay, Gabe, Katie said. We don't want to get you into hot water. We appreciate your help, and please let us know if you learn anything new. I will, he said. After they said their goodbyes and hung up, Joe asked, Do you think your station can run the story with the evidence we have? Only if they want to get sued, Katie said. I'm not sure what else we can do right now, Joe said. Katie got up and sat on Joe's lap, facing him. She started unbuttoning Joe's shirt and said, I think I can give you some of what I promised you now and the rest later. I think this is a good time to renegotiate, Joe said. I want double. A while later, as they lay in bed together, Katie said, We have done so much together in such a short time. We now know who murdered the Williamses. We can't prove it yet, but I am confident we will be able to soon. Look at you being optimistic, Joe said. I think it's time we stop pretending everything will work out and discuss our future together, Katie said. Joe felt backed into a corner and didn't know how to respond. He had hoped fate would intervene and solve the problem for him, but that hadn't happened yet. Okay, Katie, let's lay out the problem and see if we can find a solution. Essentially, we have 3 options. 3? I was thinking 2, but okay. Let's start with the first one. Option 1 would be me staying here with you, Joe said. In the plus column, I would be with you. That is a big plus. I might also be able to help you with future investigations. That is another plus. In the minus column is the fact that I am not a city boy. I'm happiest when I am near nature. I like getting away from people whenever I feel like it. When I say people, I don't mean you, but rather crowds of people. I also have the resort to think about. Okay, Katie said. What about the second option? Option 2 would be you coming to live with me in my cabin. I think you would like it there. You would be unable to work at the television station, which would be in the minus column, but there is so much to do there. We can ski in the winter and go on nature hikes in the summer. I would be bored without a career, Katie said. The resort needs a marketing manager. With your education and experience, I bet you could keep the place full all year. You are quite the salesman, Joe. What is this third option you have in mind? We could just run away together. We can go to Europe or anywhere. Then, we can buy a condo in Florida like we talked about. You are over 30 now, remember? Katie leaned over, kissed Joe, and said, I love that you have a sense of humor, but right now, it's not making me feel better. What would make you feel better? Joe asked. Let's get out of here. I know a nice little coffee shop that has great sandwiches. Sounds good. Let's go. I can't go like this. I have to get ready. Give me an hour, Katie said as she got out of bed. An hour? Really? Okay, 45 minutes. I need time to make myself look pretty. You're already beautiful. Just put some clothes on. You won't win this one, Joe. 35 minutes later, they were on the road. Katie drove into the city, and they parked in an area with several buildings that looked like apartments on top and retail stores on the bottom. The cafe was on the corner and had 4 tables on the sidewalk in front of the entrance. The weather was warm for January in Milwaukee, so all the tables were taken. Joe noticed 3 tables had dogs and figured the dogs, more than the weather, were the reason people chose those tables. Inside, there were at least a dozen tables. 2 tables were empty, but there were several people in line. Katie said, "I know you are not a coffee drinker, Joe, but they make a good iced coffee. They also have good Cuban sandwiches." "I'll have what you're having, Katie." Katie placed the order, and when the food was ready, they carried it to the only empty table they could find. Joe tasted the coffee and said, "This is surprisingly good for coffee. I had them make it with heavy cream for you. I'm trying to fatten you up." "Keep trying," Joe said. "Are you going to tell me you can't get fat either?" "I don't know. I never tried." "Nobody tries to get fat," Katie said, frustrated. "If I could just have a little of what you have, I would drop everything and come live with you." "I will hold you to that," Joe said. When they finished their lunch, Katie took Joe to the public market. He was impressed with how big the place was. Vendors were selling a wide variety of different types of food. They passed a pastry shop and a candy store. There was a store with many varieties of honey, along with real maple syrup. Joe spotted a deli and said, "Let's check this place out." They stood behind several people, and when they made it to the counter, Joe ordered a small amount of several different types of lunch meats and cheeses. "What's that for?" Katie asked. "If we are going to do a stakeout later, I thought it would be nice to bring along some sandwiches." "You must have been a Boy Scout," Katie said. "I was," Joe said. "It seems like 100 years ago." Katie rolled her eyes and said, "You are such an exaggerator. I doubt it was more than 98 years ago." Joe laughed and said, "It seems you have a sense of humor too, Katie." After the deli, they found a bakery where Joe bought a loaf of sourdough bread. There was also a produce stand where he picked up lettuce and tomatoes. "You are going all out on these sandwiches," Katie said. "Only the best for my lady," Joe said. They left the market and headed back to Katie's apartment. Once there, Joe spread everything out on the kitchen counter. He made 4 sandwiches and packed them in a cooler that Katie kept at the bottom of the pantry. He put water and ice packs in the cooler and closed it. Katie watched him and said, "It looks like we are going on a picnic." There's no rule that says a picnic has to be in the park. It can also be in a car while on a stakeout. I feel like I am working and going on a date at the same time. When work ceases to be fun, you should look for a new career, Joe said. "It will be dark in an hour," Katie said. "Maybe we should get there early, just in case." "I agree," Joe said. "Let's go." Joe grabbed his camera bag, and they headed to the apartment. They parked across the street from Williams's apartment building when they arrived. It was still light, and they could see several people outside, including a couple of kids on a swing set at the house next to the apartment. "We could be here all night," Joe said. "Are you prepared for that?" "Well, I have to work tomorrow morning, so we should set a time limit. Let's call it a night if nothing happens by midnight." "Okay, midnight it is," Joe said. "Are you hungry yet? Do you want a sandwich?" "Of course, I want a sandwich. I wanted one while you were making them." Joe got the cooler from the back seat and took out a sandwich and a bottle of water for Katie and for himself. Katie looked at the sandwich and said, "You didn't toast it." "Really? That's what you have to say about it?" Katie laughed, and Joe said, "Very funny. You better be careful. I know where your ticklish spots are." Katie took a bite of her sandwich and said, "This is delicious. This is the best sandwich I ever had." "You're walking on dangerous ground, young lady." "I'm not joking, Joe. This is very good. It was very thoughtful for you to put so much effort into it." "I would do anything for you, Katie." "You mean like sitting in a car all night waiting for something that may never happen?" "Okay, almost anything." Katie slapped Joe on the arm and said, "Always with the jokes. I know you would do anything for me, and I love you for that." Just then, a car drove down the street. Joe saw an old lady in the driver's seat. He said, "We should look at every driver that goes by. She may not drive the Corvette." Katie leaned over and kissed Joe. She said, "If we watch every car, when will we have time to make out?" Joe kissed her and said, "I think we can let a few get by." 5 hours later, Katie was sleeping with her head resting on Joe's shoulder. Joe saw a white sedan drive by. It was too dark to see the driver, but he remembered Gabe saying the captain drove a white sedan. He picked up his camera. He wanted to be prepared. When he did, Katie woke up and said, "What time is it?" Joe looked at the clock on the dash and said, "A little after 11. "Did you see something?" "I don't know. Maybe." Joe set his camera to video mode and leaned his seat back a little. He set the camera lens on the edge of the door against the glass. He wanted to be ready. "What did you see?" Katie asked. "I saw a white sedan. I know millions of them are out there, but Gabe said that McKay drives a car like that." Katie and Joe both studied the sidewalk for any movement. 30 seconds later, a figure appeared in the distance. Joe lined up his camera and started recording. Katie leaned her seat back too, and they both tried to stay out of sight as best they could. As the figure got closer, they could see it was Laura McKay. She had something in each hand, but it was hard to tell what they were. She disappeared inside the apartment, and Joe and Katie looked at each other, but said nothing. Joe kept the camera rolling. After 5 minutes, Laura McKay exited the building. Joe recognized a wrench in her hand and noticed whatever was in her other hand was gone. Joe removed the memory card from his camera, handed it to Katie, and said, "Here is your evidence. Keep it safe. I'm going inside. Stay here and call Garcia. Let him know what is going on. I'll see if I can figure out what she did." Katie put the memory card in her coat pocket and zipped it closed while Joe got out of the car. "Be careful," she said. "I'll be fine," he said, and went inside the building. He stayed near the door and looked around but saw nothing unusual. In front of him were stairs going up and down. He chose to go down. As he descended, he could smell something. When he reached the bottom, he knew what it was. It was the smell of gas. He walked past an apartment on each side of the hallway. Beyond them were 2 more doors. The left door had an apartment number. The right door was open. He went to the open door. The light was off, but the hallway light illuminated it enough for him to see it was a boiler room. There was a large boiler with pipes running seemingly everywhere. The smell of gas was almost overwhelming in the room. Joe had no plumbing experience, and there wasn't time to figure out what McKay did. "Joe?" came Katie's voice from outside the room. "Joe, where are you?" Joe turned and saw Katie appear in the doorway. She reached her hand around to turn on the light, but Joe grabbed it and said, "It's gas. Any spark could set it off. What are you doing here? I told you to wait outside." "I just came to see if you were okay. We need to warn these people." "I'll do that. You go outside and call 911. Hurry." Katie raced upstairs, and Joe started pounding on doors. "Gas leak! Get out now!" he yelled at each door. He made his way to the second and then the third floor. Once he was sure everyone was out or on the way out, he made his way downstairs. When Katie got outside, she called 911. After a minute or so, she saw people exiting the building. She waited several minutes, but didn't see Joe come out, so she went in to check on him just as the last resident left the building. Joe saw her come in as he reached the bottom of the stairs and yelled, "Katie, we gotta go!" He grabbed her hand and pulled her out the door. They reached the top of the outside steps when the gas ignited and blew them clear of the building. They hit the ground hard on opposite sides of the sidewalk. Joe could feel dozens of pieces of debris embedded in his body. He was reminded of his war injuries. He looked up and saw Katie motionless, face down in the hard dirt. "Katie!" he yelled. "Katie!" The thought that she might be dead frightened him beyond measure. He tried to get up, but couldn't. With much pain and great effort, he managed to crawl to Katie. When he reached her, he turned her head but saw no life in her. He put his hand on her cheek and closed his eyes. This time, he could feel her. He realized then that he had been thinking of her as a separate person. Now, he thought of her as part of him. She was a part of him that he couldn't bear to lose. They were one person. Katie came to suddenly. She could feel Joe like she did before, but this was even more intense. She thought maybe they had died and were in heaven. She could feel her injuries from the inside. She could also feel Joe's injuries. She knew he was in pain. She felt her body rejecting the debris embedded inside. She felt her body pushing out all the pieces. She then felt her blood clotting where it touched her skin. Suddenly, she no longer felt Joe. He was gone, and she was alone. "Joe," she yelled. She shook him, but he didn't respond. "Joe, God damn it, don't you die on me." A paramedic knelt beside Joe. Another appeared next to Katie. He turned her head up and shone a light in her eyes. She turned back to Joe and cried, "Joe! Joe!" This audiobook continues on the next video. For more information on this book and others by this author, please visit charleshuss.com.